Hey, track and field family. As we get ramped up here, season's approaching very quickly, competition season, and I thought it was important to come on and give a video update. A lot of things went home today, several things going on. Wanted to be able to give you some more in depth information straight from my lips and give a little more detail than I can give when I'm trying to text message our parents. So we're going to break this down into sort of three segments. The first, the things that affect everyone. The second, the things that pretty much just affect varsity. And third, the things that just pretty much affect the middle school team. So starting with everyone, clothing orders, the apparel that we had t-shirts, short sleeve t-shirts, long sleeve t-shirts, and hoodies that we were selling. Athletes had the option to buy them for themselves or sell them to family members or whatever they wanted to do. Supposed to be due today. I've extended that to Monday. So if you wanted to order something and didn't get it in, please get it in on Monday. And my plan is to place that first thing on Tuesday morning. So we won't have that apparel for the first meet next week, but that should certainly get it here in time for our second meet. So again, clothing orders due Monday. If there's anything you wanted to add or didn't turn it in to begin with, send it with your kids on Monday. I want to talk a little bit about nutrition and water, and I know my high school kids and my high school parents that have been around me for a while have heard me harp on this, but I will continue to do so because it is a very important aspect as kids get older of being the best athlete that they can be. First, we're going to start with nutrition. It's really important that our athletes limit their amount of unhealthy foods, things like sugars and candies and bags of chips and all those unhealthy items. I know their kids and other teens are going to eat those things, but they do want to limit what they eat and obviously replace those with fruits and vegetables as much as possible. And the other big thing is water. There are a lot of benefits to staying properly hydrated for athletes, improved muscle function, regulated blood pressure, improved circulation, reducing risk of injury, all reasons that our athletes need to stay very well hydrated. And, with COVID this year, they're allowed to have water bottles in school. And while that may not occur in the future, that is a huge benefit to an athlete who takes advantage of it. So in general, for middle school, kind of a good rule of thumb is to take your athlete's body weight and divide it by 2. And that's how many ounces of water they drink per day. So if they're 100 pounds, divided by 2, they should be drinking about 50 ounces of water per day. The high school level, you could probably do something similar, but we do typically tend to say at the high school level, 96 ounces is a kind of the average that we tell athletes to drink. 96 ounces of water per day. So very important to stay hydrated before practice and after practice, and of course some during practice. So nutrition and water and proper hydration is important. Some people may ask about sports drinks, Gatorade, things like that. Those are okay sometimes, but they still aren't necessarily as good as water. Okay, if you're having a really long practice, a couple hours of an intense workout, that would be the best scenario, the best reasoning for drinking like a sports drink or Gatorade. Because unfortunately, Gatorade, while it does have the ability to rehydrate us, it also has a lot of sugar, which is something that we typically want to stay away from. The last thing I was going to mention that applies to everyone. Last year we gave out a track and field guide. We had a meeting and we haven't had a chance to have one yet in person, and it was just a 9 or 10 page document that we took from somewhere and sort of adapted it towards Augusta and made it our own. And it was just kind of a guide that explained track and field for those parents that were new to the sport. I know we've got some new high school parents that haven't done it or are not very experienced with track and field. And then we have most if not all of our middle school parents are probably new to track and field. So I'm probably going to post that online here this weekend, and it'll be like on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Just a good thing to read through and kind of get a familiarity with the sport. Because those of you who might be familiar with cross country, track and field is completely different. Everything from the trainings are different, and of course the events they compete in are different, and the competition days are different. There are a lot more differences, I think, than there are similarities for most of our athletes. So that will be a good thing to read over if you get a chance. that I'll try to post online this weekend. Going to transition into some high school specific things. We gave out a lot of things today, and I'm going to start talking about the high school meet schedule. So I posted it online on Wednesday. Later that night, I was on the phone talking to Coach Tavisky from Bracken County, and we were talking about something else. And he mentioned, Coach, he said, I see that you have this date for Harrison County, but I have it as something else. So I had went off of an email that I had gotten, and I think it said May 20th. And then turns out on the mile split calendar, which is what we actually go by, on there it read the 21st. So I had to change. So I had to take down that race, change it to the 21st. I should note the 21st is graduation, but we don't have any seniors. There may be one or two who have to miss because they're in band or they have to be involved in graduation. But this year, graduation is not open to the public anyway. Even if your kid wanted to go, they have to, each graduate can only invite 10 guests. So unless your child was going to be one of those 10 guests anyway, they wouldn't be able to go. So anyway, but that was the first change. So get to Thursday night, post it again. Okay, try it again. About 2 hours after I posted, we get an email from the region host, which is Danville. They had originally said that their tentative date for region was May 29th. So that's what I had on our schedule. Well, they reached out to this Region 5 schools and indicated there was one school that is having apparently a graduation on the 29th. So there was a conflict. So I had to take it down again. And I haven't reposted it online. I sent schedules home with kids today, and actually on the region date, it still has TBA, and it's got the window of when region can be held. So region can be held, I think, May 24th through June 5th. It's a 2-week period. But when I printed those today, I hadn't heard anything else. So I get leaving practice, checking email, and we get another email from the region host that says it looks like our tentative date is now May 31st. So that is Memorial Day. And that may seem odd, but it's really not odd for high school sports to at least in this area, to compete on Memorial Day. In fact, for years, the baseball team, at least in the 10th region, baseball tournament has started on Memorial Day. So, yes, it's a holiday, but the 2 Saturdays that are in that window for region are not available. It looks like they're not going to be options. So they thought Memorial Day would be the next best day, given the fact that a lot of people will be able to be off work. So I wanted to go ahead and give you that to you now. That's not 100% definite, but I would say it's probably 85% certainty of our regional championship being on Memorial Day. So please go ahead and mark that on your calendars, and obviously avoid trying to make any special plans on that day. It is in Danville, and Danville's about a 2.5-hour drive. Probably without stops, so it will be a lengthy day. Also that week, that is also the week that the district baseball tournaments will start in Kentucky. So I don't know exactly what day. I know we have a couple baseball players that play, and hopefully there won't be any conflicts with our track region and the baseball district tournament. While we're talking about the schedule, you'll notice that we open up our season a week from tomorrow, in a week, basically next Saturday. And we don't have another meet until April 17th. Part of that was the spring break week, but part of it wasn't. I could have found us a meet to go to, but given the fact of our sort of delayed start with the delayed basketball season, I thought it was okay to have that 3-week break between our first meet and our second meet. Normally, that's not something I like to do. I don't go 3 weeks between meets. But that kind of brings me to my next point of expecting a slow start this year for our varsity runners, and particularly for our varsity basketball players who play basketball and have now joined us in track and field. And it's been great to have them back this week. A lot of those, of course, are cross-country runners, and our level of practices have been really good this week. But they've practiced a couple of times before this week, but really, they've not practiced much. They've just not had the opportunity to, because basketball, as it should have been, was the focus during basketball season. So it's important to remember and important to remind your kids if they're disappointed. We're not racing for March 27th. We're not racing really even for the meets in April. We're racing for the end of the season. All right, we're racing for May. We're racing for the regional tournament, the regional championship. And that's kind of the way that's always has been. And we've always focused, of course, on improvement. We just want to see improvement throughout the season. But, I could be obviously wrong about this, but I just think we have to have some extra patience this year and allow our training to catch up with us because we are a few weeks behind. You have to remember a lot of these kids from other schools, I'd say a lot of track runners don't play basketball. They've been practicing regularly probably since at least February, and some of them since December. You can actually start track and field practice in December. So, from that standpoint, it's important to be patient, not compare too much to other athletes. We don't want to peak in April anyway, but it just may be a little bit slower progression than we've been used to seeing. The other thing I gave out today was the rules form. This is very similar to what was given out cross country, very similar to what was given out in past seasons of track and field. Please read over that. It talks about the attendance expectations and the attendance consequences for missing. It talks about transportation rules. It talks about, general academic requirements, just, all the basics that are important, that a lot of common sense things, but please read over those, have your child read over those, and sign those forms for me, and we hope to get those back on Monday. We don't want to drag that out, have the athletes remember to get it back on Monday so we have it taken care of. I think physicals are good because everyone, I believe, on track and field has played another sport this season, so everyone's physicals for the varsity team should be in good shape. The third thing I gave out today was the newsletter, and those of you that have had me in the past know I provide this newsletter. Typically, it has 3 or 4 meets on there, and it gives the information for those meets. What time will the bus leave? What time does the race start? What time do I think we'll be back? The address for the meet. So this only has one meet on this first newsletter because we only have one in March, and we'll give another one out as the other April meets get closer. So I have that on there, and also have the order of events for runners. There is a while I can't give you a specific time of what time your child's going to compete. Unlike cross country, sometimes I can guesstimate race times pretty good, but track and field that's very difficult to do. So I can't really tell you when the 1 mile is going to be, or the 800, or the 2 mile, or anything else. But it does have the race start time. But anyway, I've listed the order of events so you can see the order of the running events and how they typically occur. Now, for our throwers, shot put, discus, those are not a set order for those, and those kind of vary from meet to meet. So I gave that out today. And then a handful of athletes got the multi-sport athlete planning tool, is what I call it, meet planning tool. So basically what I've done for them is those kids that play tennis or baseball or softball, middle school volleyball, I have put our meets on there, and based on what's on the schedules currently, I've put what other events are happening on those days. All right, if there's a softball game, volleyball game, baseball game, tennis match, whatever, and this will allow them to go through and sort of mark if there's meets they think they can't go to. Athletes, for the most part, have the ability to choose what they're going to go to if they play more than one sport in a season. Typically, they can go to their preference as long as it's not going to create a hardship for one team where one team wouldn't have enough numbers. So they do have the choice for the most part, and this allows us to help plan. There are some meets where I'm limited to how many kids I can run in an event. We pay for these kids to go compete, so we don't want to pay if we don't have to and waste that athletic department money. So we'd like to have those back in by next Friday. These are not set in stone. If they mark something now, they can likely change it. Just keep in mind, I do have to submit our meet registration usually 4 or 5 days before meet. So while it's not set in stone right now, if they are going to change their mind, I probably need to know about a week before the meet. That kind of covers the varsity specific things. I don't have a lot of middle school specific items, but a couple things. Next week, middle school throwers. Please remember that starting next week, you're going to follow the THR practices on your schedule. You will not follow the middle school MS abbreviation any longer. You're going to follow the THR. That is our throws practices, and they will begin working with Coach Snap next week, our assistant coach who handles our throwers. So just remember that's the schedule that throwers will follow next week, and will mostly be with Coach Snap from here on out. We want to encourage our middle school parents to encourage their kids to be active outside of practice. We don't want them to be we don't want the only time them we don't want the only time for them to be active to be during practices. We want them to be active in other days as well. So just encourage them to get out. I know they're not going to go out and run laps or anything, but encourage them to be active and get some good workouts in on days we don't have practice. And our first middle school meet is April 15th. So we will be providing, of course, more information on the meets as they get closer, being still about 4 weeks away from our first meet. So I think that's going to do it for this update. Again, several things that I thought were important to get out and sort of discuss in some detail. Looking forward to spring officially starts this weekend, so hopefully that will bring some good weather, continued good weather. It looks like we're back up in the 60s next week. Just a reminder, we don't typically cancel for rain. I canceled on Thursday for a couple of different reasons. I thought it was going to storm worse than it did, to be honest, and it didn't do a lot of storming. But just keep that in mind. If there's rain in the forecast, have your athletes dress appropriately, because if it's raining and pretty warm, even somewhat warm, we're probably going to be outside. So look forward to another week of practice coming up, and looking forward to the first varsity meet next Saturday, March 27th at Bracken County. Hope you all have a good weekend, and we'll see you soon.